Well, what a crazy surprise it was last night, ladies and gentlemen. The epic Joe Rogan Donald Trump podcast dropped at around 10 o'clock randomly. Now, my guess is that it was a time sensitive thing with the election upcoming. If you've got it recorded, get it out ASAP, which is probably what they did. But it was just kind of weird to see this crazy seismic interview get released at 10 o'clock, and then they unlisted it, and now we've learned that it didn't upload properly on Spotify. I'm guessing because this is not normally when they release their episodes or podcasts, and so they had to unlist the Rogan video on YouTube about 10 minutes after they listed it, and then they re-put it back up and made it public for everyone, even though it was always public. It was just in the podcast section. But at this point, you can see the report. Trump's interview with Rogan, 9.3 million views. Again, crazy. They released this game during like the sixth inning of a Yankees-Dodgers World Series game one. Like this, all of this stuff happening is just, it's remarkable. And it just goes to show you where the media is, the new media, with Rogan being able to really do whatever he wants. And this is obviously going to get a ton of views. And my initial reaction to this, it was an amazing podcast for Donald Trump. I really hope independent people watch this. 3 hours. You know, that's probably one of the things that Rogan wanted. I think there were actually a few things that Rogan wanted. Obviously, unscripted. Trump has to come to his studio because that's what really makes it real. If Rogan goes and travels and does the podcast, it doesn't look as, the vibe is off. So you get Trump in the studio in Austin, and also 3 hours, at least 2.5 to 3 hours. I think that's what Rogan wanted. Whenever you get these big politicians and they go on these podcasts, they only do an hour. They do an hour 30. Rogan got Trump to do 3 hours. They talked about a bunch of different stuff, and there was no issues. I know people were like, well, what is Rogan? Is he going to question Trump? It was very, very friendly, and Rogan definitely complimented Trump. And Rogan said he wanted Kamala on, and it might still happen. So that tells me that Kamala Harris and her campaign, they're so uneasy about this entire thing. They're probably waiting for the reaction from the Rogan Trump interview. And then if they get pressured, Kamala might have to go on Rogan and do 3 hours because Trump just did 3 hours. That would be interesting. Now I'm going to be reacting to this. You can see there's definitely some funny clips from this. Joe Rogan, or excuse me, this is Trump saying, Joe, you can't vote for Kamala. Let's see.
The same thing, Joe, because you cannot be voting for Kamala. Kamala, you're not a Kamala person. I know you. I've watched you. I know him better than he is. You know what? Without speaking to you, I think I know you maybe almost as well as your wife. I have watched you for so many years. You're not a Kamala person. You're a Khabib person, but you're not a Kamala person. Nobody's going to know who Khabib is, but
they know who
he
Khabib
was not bad, right? That guy.
Oh, he was phenomenal.
But that's your kind of
Your
person.
weave is getting wide. We're getting wide with
my
this
weave.
weave.
But isn't it the same thing, Joe?
Your weave is getting wide.
By the time I finished,
this is hilarious.
We had no problem with North Korea. We were really, it was a little tough at the beginning, remember?
Mm-hmm.
He said, I have a red button on my desk. I said, I have a red button also, but mine's bigger than yours and mine works.
I liked how you called him Little Rocket Man.
I said, yeah, Little Rocket. I said, Little Rocket Man, you're going to burn in hell. And it was a rough.
Little Rocket Man, you're going to burn in hell.
Yeah.
Oh, so rough that people were worried. This is crazy. And then one day I got a call, sort of like a fight. I got a call. You know, you ever see one of that pounding, and then all of a sudden, but I got a call. And it was from him, meaning his people. They wanted to meet. They wouldn't meet Obama. He tried to meet. They wouldn't even talk to him about it. And I think he expected to go to war. I actually do. I believe he expected.
No, I agree. I think he does as well. I think North Korea is, they're on the border of getting themselves, something really bad happening to them. And it's almost like they want it. But this is really good. Trump is demonstrating that no, even with enemies and adversaries, you have to talk. When you don't talk, that's when really bad things start happening. And then they say, oh, he kisses up to these dictators. It's a lose-lose. Do you want peace or not? I don't know what these liberals want. So you don't want them to talk. You don't want there to be any peace deals. Well, actually, they don't want any peace deal with Ukraine and Russia. He's like, Little Rocket Man, you're going to burn in hell. I can't believe he said that in the interview. Joe Rogan asked Trump what was one mistake he made. So this is very key because they asked Kamala this a few days ago, the CNN town hall with Anderson Cooper. She could not list a single mistake that she made. It was so bad, Anderson Cooper phrased the question 3 different times. She still could not answer it. She ended up just saying good things about herself. Trump reflects and says that he probably put in the wrong people in 2016. And it's a win-win for him because a lot of his supporters, pretty much all of them, would agree, the people that he appointed in 2016. And it's understandable. You've never held, a position of power like that, and then you get thrust into the top. It's a very hard thing. You don't have the connections in DC to really know how it works. That's why Trump's going to be a lot better in his second term. Obviously everyone gets better with experience, but with Trump, it's next level because he had no experience. Then he gets the experience. Now he's going to be even better.
The biggest mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
neocons?
Yeah, neocons or bad people or disloyal people or
people that were just
people
bad.
That were into the
people
you
got bad advice.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're reading about them a little bit today. A guy like Kelly, who was a bully, but a weak person. You know more about bullies than anybody probably around because you deal in a certain sport where the bullies are exposed very quickly.
Yeah.
But he's bad. Bolton was an idiot, but he was great for me because I'd go in with a guy like a John Bolton.
Was an idiot.
John Bolton. A friend of mine called me up. I was picking Bolton, and he's a very smart guy. His name is Phil Ruffin. He's a very rich guy from Las Vegas. He's a great card player. He doesn't play cards, but he's a great player. He's just a natural. Got poker sense, right? The good old poker sense. And Phil Ruffin is a very, very wise kind of a guy, and one of the richest people around, and has had great success and understands people. So it was in that I was picking Bolton, or I picked Bolton. He called up. He said, "Don't pick him. Why? He's a bad guy." Now he wasn't in politics at all. He's in.
Yeah. So Trump just reflecting on the people that he picked. Conversation took a serious turn with Rogan when he pointed out a lot of weirdness that happened in 2020. And yeah, so this is a very key moment. I think the biggest thing, I'm going to play this and then react, but
Actually denied that and she called you an illegitimate president, and she said
that's correct. They did deny the 2016 election. Trump says she did concede the night of. That's why liberals think it's different. But then for 3 years with that, it was even worse because they opened an investigation and they mired the Trump presidency in this investigation in the Russia hoax and the fact that Russia, they said, won the election for Trump. And that was something that the mainstream media believed for 3 years, all the way up until like 2019. And a lot of liberals still believe that what they'll say now is they'll say, well, it didn't win Trump the election, but there was clear collusion. But now at least they admit it didn't win him the election.
Said that Russia put you in place.
Even though she conceded.
Yes.
She conceded the night of the election because she was beaten.
Yes, and it was a thing that was pretty common for people, especially Democrats, to deny the elections. There's been many of them. The Bush administration, but here's my point.
They denied it right up until the end.
My point is, this idea of election fraud is a forbidden topic. And you get labeled an election denier. It's like being labeled an anti-vaxxer if you question some of the health consequences that people have from the COVID-19 shots. Oh my God, you're an anti-vaxxer. If you say, and what I say publicly, and I've said this a lot, it's not 0%. So if you ask me, what is the amount of election fraud in this country?
Right, and that's Rogan's take. But you also have to understand this, and they don't, nobody talks about this. You've got liberals calling Trump Hitler. I mean, they're still doing it, right? But like back in 2016, you've got liberals calling Trump Hitler, but genuinely believing he'd be the worst thing that would ever happen. And they still believed that in 2020, but then they want us to believe they would never do anything to manipulate an election when you literally think one of the candidates is Hitler. Wouldn't you do everything in your power to stop them? But it's like, we think he's the worst thing to ever happen and he's going to blow up the earth and kill everyone. But how dare you accuse us of manipulating an election or cheating? He's going to blow up the world, but we would never do that. We would let him do. So see, you understand, it's the inconsistency. They think he's this horrible person. And then we're like, yeah, I mean, there's some inconsistencies. Look at some of the vote counts. It's ridiculous. And I think the election was manipulated. And Mark Zuckerberg admitted that through big tech with the Hunter Biden story. And that was actually government collusion because that was the FBI and the CIA. But they're right. It's just the next level of it. You have to think about, if they really think Trump's this horrible, horrible person, which they did, and they clearly still do, they're still writing articles about how he's Hitler, and that was their big October surprise a few days ago, then how can we not think when you get these irregular vote totals and you've got all this crap and you've got ridiculous, absurd number of mail-in votes, which European countries have banned mail-in voting because of rampant voter fraud? How do we not then surmise some things? But you don't even have to go to that. What Trump should say is, look, Zuckerberg with his letter admitted they manipulated the election through bias, media bias, by silencing a story that was true. It was an October surprise. And they talk about the Hunter Biden laptop and how bad it is, but it's really next level because it shows election manipulation in 2020. That is election manipulation. That was the one big October surprise that was negative against Biden, and it was about his family corruption. And with an election that was only decided by 40,000 votes, that's very, very crucial. And so when we've got clear election manipulation with the government warning Facebook, Twitter, and all the big time social medias that there's going to be disinformation, Russian disinformation about the Biden family corruption before the election, and then it happens and then it ends up being real, you've got a big problem and you've got a manipulated election. That's really how that happened. We've also got,
if I were president. Russia would have never gone into Ukraine if I were president.
How would you have stopped it?
Automatic, two things. I told him. I said, Vladimir, you're not going in. Russia,
I said, Vladimir, you're not going in. Oh, yeah, this was crazy, the editing.
I think it's the biggest scandal in broadcast history, what happened to CBS. So you have CBS 60 Minutes. That's a news program. It's not an entertainment program. It's under their news. It's the head of their news thing. She gives an answer that shows that she's essentially incompetent.
Right. The answer was horrific. I forget what the question was, but the answer was like you can't even be you can't even be a mayor. I mean, and this is like it was so bad.
And they took the answer. Could you imagine them doing that?
We can show it if you want people to see it. Can we show it? No.
Sure.
We get in trouble. We'll get copyright strike. Okay. Listen, anyone can find it. But it's drastic. But what was interesting was the other full version was available initially. It was like a preview.
Somebody made a big mistake.
Somebody put that.
Yeah, well, they released two versions of it. Apparently, CBS has like two different versions of their 60 Minutes show. The main one, the preview, is the one that gets way less views, and I think that's the one that had the full answer. And then the main one, the actual program, cut out the answer, and then it cut to a completely different answer, and it made her look more competent. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's like, how does CBS in the biggest interview of the year manipulate the interview to make the candidate seem better, and they're trying to claim they're unbiased? That makes no sense. It's absurd. But yeah, guys, those are just, I mean, there's more clips here. Let's see.
Republicans now. They're like, you want to be.
Yeah, Republicans. Republicans now the rebel. There's that. This is the best 2 minutes of the Rogan Trump podcast. I don't know why the media is so obsessed with me. I do. It's because you say crazy shit.
Exactly why. Maybe you can tell me why.
Oh, I could.
It wasn't like I was trying. In fact, I don't know exactly why. Maybe you can tell me why.
Oh, I could definitely tell you. You said a lot of wild shit.
Maybe.
He said a lot of wild shit, and then CNN, in all their brilliance, by highlighting your wild.
It's just so crazy that Trump actually appeared on JRE. But this went very, very well, and it humanized Trump. And to go 3 hours, and it's just crazy how they actually are running with the idea that Trump is Hitler. The guy sits down for 3 hours. He's an open book. You've got Kamala Harris, who won't agree to a podcast with Rogan without her people being in the room, without the questions being scripted. This is absurd. You have people like Tulsi Gabbard now, Republicans, minority females, switching parties, RFK Jr. They talk about RFK Jr. in this. This is just a knockout punch, and you've still got the Madison Square Garden rally. You've still got Trump going to Virginia. I mean, this was a really, really good. Rogan was really good. He tried to keep Trump on track. Obviously, Trump's going to ramble a little bit, do the weave, as he says, but very, very enjoyable. And you're not going to find. I mean, imagine even Obama going on this. Would Obama even do this? He wouldn't do it. And they say he's the best. He has nothing to hide. Well, then why is Trump going on there for 3 hours? I mean, it's just. To have a president actually go on for 3 hours, and I know that's what Rogan wanted. He wanted the full 3 hours. That's his podcast. You don't want to do an hour and a half, 2 hours. Do the full 3 hours. It really brings Trump down to earth, in terms of, the general public listening to him and it being a lot more relatable. And so this was very, very good, and I think it's going to help him. Hopefully a lot of people see it, a lot of independent voters. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.